This is one of the darkest truths in modern history. For the United States, war has never just been about survival, justice, or freedom. It has always been about money. Each conflict became not only a battlefield of soldiers and weapons, but a marketplace of opportunity. While ordinary Americans sent their sons to die and rationed food at home, the machinery of finance was quietly transforming blood into profit. America didn't just fight wars, it learned to monetize them. And in doing so, it built a financial empire that still shapes the global system today. To understand this, we need to go back to 1914. The First World War had just begun. Europe was tearing itself apart. Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, all locked in a conflict that devoured men and money faster than anyone imagined. Armies marched by the millions, artillery shells by the tens of millions, and treasuries went dry. That's where the United States saw its opening. From across the Atlantic, American factories and banks stepped in as the arsenal and the lender of democracy. Wall Street giants like J.P. Morgan made unprecedented deals with the British and French governments, arranging billions in loans and funneling wheat, steel, coal, and munitions overseas. Billions in 1910's money, amounts so large they dwarfed the federal budget itself. And every explosion on the Western Front carried not just TNT, but interest payments owed to American financiers. By the time the U.S. officially entered the war in 1917, its financial system was already invested in the outcome. If the Allies lost, Wall Street lost too. And that blurred the line between patriotism and profit. Citizens were told to buy Liberty bonds. Posters declared it their patriotic duty. Celebrities toured the country. Children bought thrift stamps. For the first time in history, an entire nation was financially mobilized to wage war. But while ordinary Americans lent their savings, the real winners were the bankers and industrialists. Factories boomed, profits soared, and a new model was born. War financed not by gold or taxes, but by debt sold to the public and backed by private banks. That model never went away. Once again, American industry surged to fill the gap. Roosevelt called the U.S. the arsenal of democracy. By 1941, its factories were already running at full tilt, churning out ships, planes, and tanks at a scale the world had never seen. The Treasury issued war bonds. The Federal Reserve guaranteed them. Over 85 million Americans bought in, raising more than $185 billion, over half the cost of the entire war. Sacrifice was sold as investment. Patriotism became financial policy. Meanwhile, companies like Boeing, Ford, and General Motors shifted to military contracts that guaranteed profit, no matter the cost or efficiency. War had become an economic engine, and as the guns thundered, another revolution took shape: the end of the gold standard. During the war, the dollar stopped being fully convertible to gold. Instead, it was backed by American industrial power and military might. Then came 1944, the Bretton Woods Conference. Delegates from 44 nations gathered in New Hampshire, and the dollar was crowned the world's reserve currency. Wars that devastated Europe had made America richer, stronger, and financially dominant. The Cold War that followed was as much financial as political. Military spending never stopped. Entire industries, aerospace, electronics, oil, grew on the back of defense budgets. Economists called it military Keynesianism, using war spending to keep the economy alive. What began as emergency financing became permanent policy. America had turned war into a structural part of its economy. And once profit depends on conflict, conflict becomes a constant. Defense contractors thrive. Banks thrive. Politicians thrive. Ordinary citizens pay the price through inflation, taxation, and debt. By the Vietnam War, this formula was fully entrenched. Over $100 billion was spent. The war was lost, but the financial system won. Contracts were fulfilled, loans repaid, interest collected. War had become profitable, win or lose. Then came the 1970s. Deficit spending and war costs drove inflation to new highs. Nixon ended the gold standard, and the dollar became a fiat currency, backed only by trust and military power. The Petrodollar system soon followed, anchoring global oil trade to U.S. currency, and ensuring that the dollar would remain indispensable. Money and war were now inseparable. From the Gulf War of 1991 to the War on Terror, the pattern never changed. Each conflict, from Baghdad to Kabul, cost trillions, fueled debt, and enriched corporations like Lockheed Martin and Halliburton. Even as wars ended in failure, the financial machine kept running. Because for those at the top, war didn't need to be won. It only needed to be funded. Today, that same system is everywhere. Defense spending exceeds $800 billion a year. Entire regions depend on it. Wall Street profits from it. Politicians protect it. The result? War has become the background noise of the economy. Always humming, always profitable. The inflation you feel, the taxes you pay, the cost of living that keeps rising, they're all tied to a financial system built to thrive on conflict and crisis. Look closer, and you'll see the same playbook in every modern disaster, from the 2008 crash to the 2020 pandemic. Deficits, bonds, bailouts, the same wartime tools, now used in peacetime. The war machine and the financial system have merged into one. And here's the hardest truth. Conflict isn't an anomaly, it's a feature. Volatility feeds profits. Instability sustains control. Volatility and every major conflict of the modern age has been as much about finance as ideology. Real financial education isn't about budgeting or investing. It's about understanding the system itself, who it serves, and how it repeats. Because history doesn't just repeat, it compounds, like interest. And if you don't understand the machinery of money and war, you're the one paying the bill. You just have to know where to look.